What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing okay, and I hope you guys have been safe since the last time I posted. I want to thank you guys before I get into today's video, because I keep seeing you guys, you keep subscribing, you keep watching the videos. I appreciate you joining me on this journey of content creation. I hope you guys continue to do so. And let's see how big we can make this. Let's see how far we can grow this. I want to see what we can do together. You know what I mean? Because I consider you guys, I consider you guys my friends. You know what I mean? You're not just some nameless, faceless people. I consider you guys my friends that are watching this. So let's see how big we can grow this channel together. So without further ado, let's get into today's story, shall we? Now, today's case is about Brenda Ann Spencer, who on January 29th, 1979, was a 16-year-old girl that opened fire on Grover Cleveland Elementary School that she lived across the street from in San Diego, California. She fired a total of 36 shots, wounding 11 people, and unfortunately ending the lives of 2 of them. Now, compared to other cases in the same vein, like Columbine, Virginia Tech, cases like that, where even if you're not into true crime, people know about the case. They've heard about it. They can tell you details of it. They've risen to that certain level of infamy where it's embedded into the media, embedded into pop culture. This case, while there is a song written about the case, it really hasn't risen to that level of infamy where everyone knows about it, everyone has heard about it. Even a lot of people who are in true crime circles like this haven't heard about this case. So we're going to start with a little bit of her background. We're going to get into the date of the crime that happened. Then we'll get into like the case and sentencing and the trial and all that. So Brenda's parents divorced when she was young. I believe she was like 9 or so. It could be a little off, but they divorced. She ends up with her father, and by all accounts, her parents didn't really have a great divorce. It was a more contentious than it was amicable. It wasn't like, hey, I'm not in love, let's just go our separate ways, you know what I mean? It wasn't one of those. And they didn't really seem to get along. But Brenda ends up with her dad. They live across, he buys this house in across the street from Grover Cleveland Elementary School. Now, from all accounts, when she was younger, she was a bright student. She was a bright kid. She enjoyed photography competitions. It just seemed to be as she got older, she went down. So she was getting older, and her mental health and everything was going down, because as she got older, she became more introverted. She became a lot more inherently violent, because she ended up, at the time of the incident, she was essentially going to like a reform school for violent and troubled students, you know what I mean? So she was going downhill. Not that anyone expect this case to happen, because you never expect this to happen, but she was going in a not positive direction. She was skipping school, and even in the months in the year previous to this incident, parents and teachers at the school and professionals are like, hey, dad, mom, she needs help. She's talking about, offing herself. She has very serious mental health issues. All this stuff is happening, and dad was like, no, she doesn't. She's fine. You don't know what you're talking about. She's my kid, leave us alone. And they kept going, she needs help. She needs assistance. She's not right in the head, essentially. But he's like, no way. Because talking about her dad for a second, rather, should I say, he was a POS, let's just say. He was not going to win Father of the Year. He wasn't going to get that, #1 dad mug for Father's Day or for Christmas, you know what I mean? Because on the Christmas before this incident took place, he actually buys her the rifle that she uses in this attack. Now, she has tried to claim, I think he even said in an interview once, that she didn't ask for it. She says she asked for a radio, but shooting was the only thing they had in common together. Because other than that, he was pretty neglectful. He was a drunk, he was an alcoholic. Even though he made good money, the smaller house that they lived in was always dirty, was always messy. They lived there with a couple other of her siblings. He was just, like I said, he was just a neglectful POS piece of crap dad, you know what I mean? So he buys her the rifle. Now, she would later claim that she thought that she was given this rifle so she could, you know, so she could off herself, which makes no sense to anybody. Even though everyone's like, hey, he was a POS, everyone's like, why would he buy you like a rifle if he wanted you to do that? He was a guy that knew about guns. He had guns. If that's something he really wanted you to do for whatever reason, he wouldn't have bought you a rifle. He was a guy that knew how to shoot, who taught you how to shoot. This was your first real gun. And other family members would later say she had been asking for a real gun for who knows how long, you know? So she had been asking for it, for this weapon. She gets it. Now, he supposedly had kept the ammo for this gun locked in his truck. So the day before the shooting happens, she's like, hey, Dad, I need to borrow your truck or for whatever reason. So she goes in, she steals the cartridges and the bullets from him, I believe in his glove compartment. And the next day, she's like, oh, I got a stomachache, Dad, I gotta stay home. And in Dad's mind, he was probably like, hey, I don't wanna have to get a call from a couple hours from the school nurse, having to come pick her up, so just stay home. You keep skipping school anyway, what's another day, you know? Like I said, not Father of the Year. So this incident starts really around the beginning of school because, you know, parents are dropping their kids off. They're trying to get these kids organized and sent to their classes, sent to where they got to go. You know what I mean? And now the first shot or two, these kids and even the faculty at the building don't really recognize what's going on because they're like, you know, maybe it's firecrackers, maybe it's a car backfiring, because they don't think, especially in 1979, that someone who has no connection to us is going to be opening fire on us. That's not even in their lexicon of things that could happen to them. But unfortunately, that was what was happening to them. Someone, somewhere, they didn't know where at first, was opening fire and was actively shooting at them at the school. Now, they start scrambling. They start trying to scramble to get these kids to safety. The principal runs out, who is one of the two gentlemen who unfortunately passes away. He's trying to get these kids to safety. He catches a bullet. He unfortunately passes away. Now, the custodian sees the principal go down. He goes over to try and assist the principal to try to help him get to safety. And then he is the other gentleman who unfortunately passes away in this. He catches a bullet while trying to assist the principal and trying to get him to safety. Now, fortunately, there were no more casualties in that, but she hit 8 kids. She hit another police officer that responded to the scene later. It's a tragedy with this. You know, the police respond about 15 minutes after the initial 911 call, after the initial, hey, our school is getting fired at, we need help. Takes them 15 minutes. Now, initially, once they figured out where the shots were coming from, they couldn't establish like a telephone line of communication to her house because she was talking to a reporter on the telephone, because apparently this reporter, once he heard about the shooting, was trying to like contact neighbors that were in the area of the school saying, hey, do you hear anything? What's going on? You know, just stories like that. And he reportedly accidentally somehow ends up calling the shooter's house itself, which he didn't realize at first. He just thought this was another person that lived in the area, and he was asking them normal questions about like, hey, do you hear what's going on? But once he realizes that, hey, you know, I'm talking to the actual shooter, not just another person that lives in the area, he's like, why are you doing this? He starts asking her, you know, what's going on? Why is this something you're doing? She goes, oh, I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day. And then when she hangs up the phone, she goes, oh, I just got a pig, talking about the police officer that responded that caught one in the neck who did live. I gotta go. And she was very clearly, during this entire conversation with this news guy, was reportedly laughing and giggling. She was apparently having a great time shooting this school. Now, she hangs up the phone, and the only reason the barrage of bullets stopped toward the school is because the police essentially commandeered like a garbage truck that was like down the street in the middle of its route. They're like, hey, we're going to take this and borrow this, we'll give it back, essentially. So the garbage truck comes in, blocks her line of fire so she can no longer fire at the school, which is probably when she fired at the police. I don't know if that's when she actually fired at the police, but that's probably when that shot happened. Now, a lot of this evacuation of the town, of the local buildings, of the school, of the kids, you can see news footage of it because cameras and news people also responded to it. You can see like security and SWAT guys running down the street and trying to get in positions, trying to see what's going on. Now, this standoff takes like the entire school. Like, she's there till like 3:30, 4 o'clock from early this morning, right? And she does not surrender. She essentially told the news guy, and I think she told the police as well, I'm gonna come out shooting. Essentially, she was basically saying that I'm not gonna get taken alive. And the police were like, hey, we wanna end this peacefully. We don't want anyone else, you or any of these other kids or the faculty or the police getting harmed. We don't want that to happen. And she ends up surrendering herself after she is promised a hamburger. She's like, hey, I'm hungry, I want a burger. They're like, hey, surrender yourself, we can get you fed. We want this to come to a peaceful resolution. You can actually see in some of this footage her getting led away in cuffs. She's walking fine. She's not under the influence of anything. It's just, you know, if the handcuffs weren't there and you didn't know what was going on, you would have assumed it's just a kid walking with a bunch of police officers. You know, this is clearly just a kid who is insane, but isn't high, isn't drunk, which we'll get into that in a second, why I mentioned it like that. So let's fast forward to the next year when the trial starts to happen. Now, her lawyer had nothing to work with. I know defense attorneys catch a lot of flack, and sometimes it's deserved, but I try not to be the one to hate on defense attorneys, because defense attorneys have the job to do. And you guys know as well as I do that in the United States, everyone is entitled to a defense. They're entitled to someone defending them. You know, they're entitled to the presumption of innocence, but this guy had nothing to work with here. And the only defense that they tried to use was a dissociative state brought on by an epileptic seizure, because later in prison, she was diagnosed with epilepsy and also treated for depression as well. But the judge wasn't buying it. This was a clearly premeditated attack because she had been talking to her friends about wanting to do something. She had been talking to some other guy about wanting to kill cops. She had apparently told that same guy and a couple of her other close friends, she's like, hey, watch TV on Monday. This is the previous Saturday. Watch TV on Monday. Something's going to happen. You're not going to want to miss it, essentially. So she was telling people that she was going to do something, but they may not have believed her. She obviously didn't tell them specifically what was going on, because obviously, or hopefully, they would have said something. But unfortunately, no one said anything. No one went to police and said, hey, there's this very violent kid you guys got to watch, because something might happen. Now, she ends up pleading. She gets two concurrent 25 to life terms, because they tried her as an adult. She was 16 at the time. They tried her as an adult. She gets two concurrent 25 to life terms. She gets pleads guilty to 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Now, she doesn't get charged with the other 9 attempted murder counts from the kids and the police officer. That was probably a part of the plea deal of, hey, just plead guilty to the actual murders. We'll drop these other charges, which happens all the time in plea deals. You slap them with a bunch of charges. They'll say, hey, we'll drop these other charges if you plead to this charge. You know what I mean? And she obviously had no choice, and her lawyer was like, this is the best outcome that we could have gotten. So they take the plea deal. And with the plea deal, she is eligible for parole. So once her parole starts coming up after this few years, which is when she really starts opening her mouth and starts trying to throw twists and turns and other things into this case. Now, in 1993, which is the first parole hearing, I believe, I could be wrong, but she did an interview with a news station, basically saying, oh, my lawyer screwed me. I had a lethal amount of drugs in my system. I was seeing commandos that I was shooting at. And the parole board was like, hey, if you were high, if you had a lethal amount of drugs in your system, you were shooting pretty well for someone that didn't know what they were doing and was supposedly high out of their mind. And they didn't believe her. They're like, hey, you're someone that's clearly mentally unstable. You're not getting out. So fast forward from her 1993 parole hearing to 2001 to that parole hearing. You're going to know why I'm jumping almost a decade in a second. During this 2001 parole hearing, she dropped a bombshell of an accusation against her father, saying, my dad was, let's just say, SAing me. He was touching me inappropriately. He was physically abusive. He was doing all this sorts of stuff. Now, everyone already knew that her dad was essentially a piece of crap, but most people did not believe her. There were some people that may have believed that there was a bit of validity to what she was saying, but for the most part, no one believed her. And even if they did, the parole board didn't believe her, and that's the only people she would have had to make believe that in order to her get out. They're like, well, you know, it's pretty convenient that you're waiting until all these years later, now in 2001, to tell us this about your father. And she was still mentally unstable because she had a prison relationship that didn't work out, and she lost it with that. They mentioned that. And they went and interviewed her father about it, some news reporter. He obviously denied the claims that he was being abusive like that towards her, because even if he was being abusive like that, why in the hell would he admit that he was doing that? But she's still in prison right now, and that's really where it stands. Her next parole hearing's at 2025. In 2025, should I say. And honestly, I hope she doesn't get out, because this is one of those cases, along with other cases that I will cover in the future, that have really changed my mind with regards to minors getting sentenced to life and potential death sentences in other cases. Because you don't need to be 18 to know not to shoot up the elementary school with the kids that live across the street, or not to kill that person and take their car. You don't need to be 18 to know that certain things are wrong. You can be 16, 14 to realize murder equals bad, you know what I mean? But that's the story of Brenda Spencer. If you guys want to see me go a little bit more in depth, because there's a little bit more we can talk about, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see me talk about other cases, let me know. I do already know what case I'm going to cover next. So look out within the next week. I'll post about what case that is. Keep liking this video, comment, share, subscribe to the channel if you like me. If you don't, well, I don't know. Sorry, I guess. But in the meantime, until I see you guys next time, stay safe and have fun.